Good Thursday night to you, and thank you for joining us tonight. I am Thabo Mdluli. This week marks a year since Collins Khosa passed on after a confrontation with members of the South African National Defence Force at his home in Alexandra. He was accused of flouting lockdown regulations during level 5 of the lockdown. A year later, the family of Collins Khosa continues to seek justice for his death, allegedly at the hands of the military. Joining me now to talk about the family and how it is holding up a year later is his brother-in-law, Thabiso Mobango, who was also assaulted by the police or the members of the South African National Defence Force alongside with Collins. You can also be a part of this conversation tonight by tagging us on Twitter at Newsroom405. WhatsApp your questions and your comments to 072 110 Thabiso, good evening, and thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me in this show. Good evening to the viewers also.
It's exactly a year on Saturday since the confrontation. I call it a confrontation. You use a much more stronger word. You say it was an attack. How fresh are the events in your head of that day?
The events took place, I think, is 363 days today. To me, I still feel like it happened yesterday. The memories are still very fresh to me.
And in your thinking, when you think about what happened, I mean, do you imagine how things could have gone differently?
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
How differently?
Had they listened to what we're telling them, before they called for backup, I personally warned them. If they call for that backup, the ones who are coming, they don't even know what is happening. They will have a wrong impression of what is happening. Had they listened to me, we were going to have a different outcome. We were not going to even be sitting here.
And when you have a look at, for example, how these events are unfolded, to your mind, where these police officers or even, let me say, the members of the South African National Defence Force are acting in compliance with the law?
They were not. They were not. I remember the regulation stated clearly that people can do consumption in their own yards, of which it was the case. Yeah. But they pushed it forward. And they only did that because they saw an unattended camp chair outside. We were within our rights to be doing what we were doing in the yard. So they acted out of out of the way.
And had you seen them before, I mean, in the township itself and the raids that they were conducting, or were you aware of such raids?
We were aware, but that day, it was the first time we see them. We have never seen them before.
Yeah.
Yes.
So being aware of it, did it ever occur to you that they would one day come into your yard? Did you even imagine it happening to you at that time?
We never thought such things would happen to us. We just thought it's happening outside somewhere else. It will never come to us.
And how are you coping now as a family, a year on, mourning a family member during this pandemic, but two, I mean, it's only now that the police are saying they have completed their investigations and they've handed the docket over to the NPA. It's now for the NPA to decide what's going to happen with the matter. So no one has yet taken accountability for what happened to a member of your family.
You can imagine having someone who is very young. Collins was only 40, having his life cut short like the way it happened. So the family, I can say, they're still traumatized. I can tell you now, no one has ever been cancelled. But I can say we had people who were willing to cancel us, but due to COVID, we couldn't meet properly. So that's precisely it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, there were people who had offered to come and assist you with counseling and the children. Where are these people coming from, and how did they get to you?
We had, I don't know if I can mention their names. We had some good Samaritans who called us saying, guys, we know events like this causes trauma. can we organize for you to get counseling? We agreed on that one. So by then we communicated with the guys who were offering to counsel us.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, due to COVID, we couldn't travel well. Some of us had to go to work and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what is happening? I mean, you mentioned he was at a prime of his life. I mean, at age 40, he's got kids, he's got a partner to take care of, but also there is a mother to
Yes.
take care of. Has anybody, particularly from Joburg Metro, from the South African National Defence Force, given any thought as to who's taking care and who's looking after these people who are remaining?
Not any of them. It is only the Good Samaritans that I'm quoting, that I don't want to mention their names. Yeah. Yes, they are the only ones who've been there since the beginning. They've been helping us financially. They've been helping us emotionally. They've been there all the way. Even today, they are still there. They will still call on us and ask, how are you guys doing? Nobody from the law enforcement side.
And how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel very angry. It's been a year now, and no one is coming forward to say, guys, we are very sorry for what happened. It is very unfortunate that it happened to you. Nobody did that.
And the fact that nobody did that, but not only that, you had to go to the courts to ask the courts to actually tell the department to come up with a code of conduct for the police so that what happened to you and what happened to Collins does not happen to somebody else. Was it any consolation to you, the fact that the courts actually came out and said that the department as well as the police must come up with a code of conduct, especially on operational procedures? Did you get any consolation like that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
If you check after that ruling, their tactics changed now. They acted more humanely. They didn't use force anymore on unarmed civilians. So that was a breakthrough for us and the rest of South Africans.
Yeah. And do you think they took that seriously? They took it to heart? I mean, I know they've changed their tactic. Previously, your lawyer said, well, I mean, those rules themselves are a little bit dodgy, how they came up with them. In fact, some of the members of the South African National Defence Force were saying they don't think those rules are worth the paper they're written on.
It's a very difficult question to answer, yeah. But just to cut it short, the events that had happened after that, they will give you a clear answer. We've had others who were affected by their own reckless way of doing enforcement.
That's exactly why I'm asking you, because yes. There is somewhat of a procedure that is in place, but we are still seeing some degree of brutality at the hands of law enforcement officers. And how is that possible? And are you thinking about that to say, well, how is that possible, having this high court ruling that law enforcement could still behave in this way?
This is not a problem unique to South Africa. If you look at law enforcement around the world, they generally behave the same. There must be something that must be put in place to correct such behavior. We need to go back to the drawing board. Something is definitely not right.
Yeah. I remember Ms. Nomsa talking to us, the media that is, at some point saying we feel like we don't have a voice, right? We've been done wrong, but we want to complain, but it feels like our voice is not amplified enough. You know, this was happening at the time, for example, when George Floyd in the United States had just also died at the hands of police with a knee on his neck, and there was a groundswell nationwide, but even throughout the world, globally, right? People were giving attention to that story. But at the same time, we had Collins Khosa right here at home, who was going through a similar situation. There was not as much of attention given to that story. Do you feel now you've got that voice? Has that voice been amplified, and are people beginning to hear the pain and the suffering and the story of what you're trying to get across?
Yes, this story has got a lot of attention by the media. We thank them for that. We thank you for that. You've been with us since the beginning. But just to mention something, I think with Floyd's case, maybe it's because it had a footage. That is when the world reacted. But with our case, the footages were deleted. So maybe that is what didn't get people to rise the way they did with Floyd.
Yeah. Tell me that. I mean, you're saying the footage was deleted. Were you able to capture some of it at the time on your phones?
The neighbors. We were not even aware of that.
Yes.
Those were the neighbors who were, I can't say they were arrested because they were, I can say they were abducted because they were later on dropped off somewhere. So we can't call that an arrest. So on their way there, a lot of atrocities happened. They were beaten. I'm telling you, you can't be beating a fellow woman because this incident was started by two ladies, SNDF members. They instigated the whole thing.
What do you mean they instigated the whole thing?
They are the ones who called backup. Had they not called for that backup, the situation was going to be diffused very quickly.
So, are you aware of these two officers?
I not.
Do you know them? Do you have a history with them?
I don't know them.
Yeah.
Don't even know their names.
So there is no personal vendetta you would say
Nothing.
they have against you?
Nothing. It was our first time meeting.
And why would you think, we're speculating here, they would want to start Irao Nje for what?
Just to show us that they've got the upper hand, they are the law.
So it was a power play on their part?
That is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking back, I can see they just wanted to prove a point that they are more powerful than us. And we are not fighting anyone.
Yeah.
We are not fighting anyone. We are not even resisting arrest. Because we are basically saying to them, if we have contravened any regulation, please arrest us. Yeah. That was during our assault, but they never listened.
In fact, I wanted to ask you that. I noted that I wanted to ask you that question because one of the rulings by the judge is that they must come up with guidelines which must include how a person must be arrested. I'll come back to it when we come back here on the Newsfeed Late Night. Stay with us. By the way, we'd like to get your thoughts tonight on Twitter at Newsroom405, on WhatsApp 072-110-5584 to be a part of this conversation tonight. Thabiso Mwango is with us. He is the brother-in-law to Collins Khosa. He was also assaulted on that day and was an eyewitness of what actually happened. Talk to him more when we continue next. Stay with us. We're back with you now on the Newsfeed Late Night. Thanks for staying on. It's exactly a year on that has passed since Collins Khosa died, allegedly at the hands of members of the South African National Defence Force. The brother-in-law to Collins Khosa with me now in the studio, Thabiso Mwango, and we're having a look back at how the family has been coping. And you can also be a part of this conversation by tagging us on Twitter tonight at Newsroom405, or you can WhatsApp your questions and your comments to 072-110-5584. So, Thabiso, I'm going back to that court ruling and what the court ordered. I mean, the court further ordered that there be guidelines issued which must include what must happen when a person is being arrested as an alternative means of securing their attendance to a trial. And it just came to my mind, if at all you were thinking at that point, at least arrest us, as opposed to, taking us through what you're taking us through right now, you would have been okay with just an arrest?
I would have been okay because I knew I did nothing wrong. I was quite familiar with the regulations by that time. I even had a hard copy. So I was quite familiar with that regulations.
Yeah.
So had they arrested us, we were not going to be sitting here talking about Collins. Yeah. Collins was going to be continuing his life with his children, with his mother, with his wife.
The autopsy report revealing that, of course, Collins died from a hard hit by a blunt object, trauma to the head, blunt force trauma to the head, which suppose indicates and corroborates your story that one of the officers actually used the back of the machine gun to hit him in the head.
Yes, that is a neighbor's account. It's not my account because I was busy being assaulted simultaneously with him. So that is a neighbor's account of
That
the
is
events.
a neighbor's
Yes.
account of the events.
Yes.
And how do you feel that, I mean, with that kind of evidence being given, the department itself conducted its own investigation and they cleared the officers?
To the family, it was an insult. Are they trying to tell us that Collins died at the age of 40 due to old age? Had they not encountered or had they not had that conflict with us, Collins was going to be alive today. It was an insult to the family, an insult to the people of Alexandra.
Yeah. There are a number of other investigations that have ensued. I mean, this is the first inquiry that was done by the South African National Defence Force itself, so the Defence Force investigating itself. There was also one that was done by the Ombuds. And of course, there's now subsequently an investigation, a criminal investigation that is being done by the police. Have you been consulted at all in any of these three stages, or were there stages where you were not consulted?
We were quite consulted in all the stages. Yeah. The criminal investigation and the one done by the military ombuds.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the one done by the department?
The one done that, but they never came to us till to this day.
Okay.
Even talking about the incident scene, they've never been there.
So what did they rely on to come to the conclusion to exonerate the officers?
I do not understand. Maybe the statements taken from their members and what we have corroborated.
Yeah. So they chose to believe the word of the officers over the reports that came from the witnesses who were the neighbors, but also from yourself who experienced the brutality and the attack yourself, and they chose to ignore those because you had submitted those in your statements.
Actually, we're quite surprised that they will release that report without even talking to us. They should have had our own side of the story. Then they will conclude, not to take one side of the story and release a report. They should have come to the incident scene, look at the facts. Where were these guys? What happened? What really happened here? But none of them came.
And if you look then at the work that was done by the military ombuds and the fact that, okay, the criminal case was already on, but the officers opted not to actually participate in that process or give statements.
It's quite disappointing for us that they are not willing to participate in this whole process. We, from the beginning, we were speaking or saying the truth, and we have never changed. Since the night he died, we told the same story of what has happened. To see them saying that they don't want to be part of this process, it's quite disappointing for us.
Yeah. And has the National Defence Force conducted further investigations? Have they reopened that investigation? Are you challenging that report? I mean, what has happened to it?
That I don't know. Only my lawyers can answer that question. I don't know. Yeah. Yes, because we are not that much involved into those things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how are you legally challenging all this? I mean, where are you getting the resources to do it?
We've got our lawyers who will be doing our case on a pro bono basis. A very powerful legal team. I think you know who is our lawyer.
Yeah.
Yes. And
do they just pick up the case and decide we're going to get behind this, and even if the NPA doesn't prosecute, we'll still go ahead, we'll go private prosecution, we will actually get behind it? And what are they saying is the reason why they're taking up the case?
I don't think it's our case is the first case that they've been helping people. They've been helping people to get justice for those who don't have resources to get justice.
Yeah. It's a very important word, justice. I mean, do you get a sense that without the resources, you would not have been able to even get to this point where you are right now in the justice process?
I can definitely tell you that yes. Had we not got the resources that we have now and the attention that was given to that case by the media, we're not going to be this far. This case was going to be swept under the carpet.
Talk to me then about the investigation that has been done by the police, the criminal investigation. How properly is the case being investigated, and are you confident that they are actually covering all the loopholes, so to speak?
So far, I'm quite happy with the way they did their investigation. It was quite thorough. It was quite thorough. It took them a lot of time, even if maybe they did it at a later stage, but they took their time to make sure they have all the evidence. Yeah. So I'm quite happy with the way they did it.
What makes you say that? What gives you that sense of confidence that they were thorough and they took their time?
I can say is the way they were asking questions from us and asking questions from the SNDF members. They were reporting back to us, so guys, this is how far we are with the investigation. This is what we've been able to do now.
And in this whole entire process of the back and forth and the submission of the details, are you yourself as well, because as you're saying, you were being assaulted at the time, beginning to put the picture together, I mean, for your own self as to what was happening, maybe some of the other things that you were not aware of were happening during your own assault?
No. We've been, I can speak on my behalf, I've been very thorough from the beginning. I don't think I've left anything, because I saw almost 98% of what happened. Yeah. Yes.
And what is the role of the Joburg Metro Department in this whole thing, in your view? Because they didn't go in, according to the ombuds, with the military into the house, which in itself was an improper conduct on their behalf, because they were the ones who were doing the police work and the enforcement of the regulations. The military was coming to assist them. So the fact that they didn't go in itself is a little bit of a challenge. But they stood and they watched this happen, this unlawfulness, so to speak, this attack, and they actually did not respond.
Yeah, they actually did not even come close to us. Only the SNDF members came to us. It was only when those guys agreed to arrest us, that is when we went towards them, of which they asked me, what's wrong? I narrated the story to them. They said to me, but now if we arrest you, what charges are we going to bring against you? Because according to us, you haven't done anything wrong. Do us a favor. Can you please go back to the yard? Don't talk to them. You don't argue with soldiers. You know soldiers use force. I complied. That's when I went back.
So is that what the Metro said? Said, just don't argue with these people. These people use force, and you're going to be in trouble, pretty much. So just go in and be quiet and sit in your yard.
Yes.
Sure. And they were there, essentially, to protect you.
That's true.
How do you feel about that statement coming from the police to say, well, look, actually, these people can use that very same force against you?
You could see even them, they were scared of those guys. I'm telling you. They were traumatized of those guys. You could see they're helpless. There were guys carrying rifles. How then can you justify to use force on us if you have rifles and we are not resisting arrest? What is it that you want us to comply on?
And they, yeah, that's deep. I mean, you're saying they themselves look like they couldn't handle these people. Like if these people wanted to ransack your house, which they tried to do anyway, there was no force that could stop them. They were literally a law unto themselves.
There was nothing to stop them. They were literally in charge of the whole situation. Mind you, the backup was called by who? An SNDF member. So, which means it's their incident.
Now, you have a situation where the minister says these 4 or so police officers are on leave with full pay while this investigation is going on. I mean, that to you, is that proper? Do you think is that the way to do it? I know you wanted them suspended at least, but they are on leave with full pay at this particular point, and it continues.
For me, it's not proper. They were supposed to be suspended without pay. That at least it was going to show that they are remorseful. But for them they're just resting at home, getting their salaries every month. Who's supporting Collins' kids now? Who's taking care of his mother? Who's taking care of everyone that he was supporting? No one. But they are busy in the comfort of their homes. Their lives are going on. Collins is normal.
Thabiso will continue with you in a moment. He's the brother-in-law to Collins Khosa, a year on and still grappling with the reality of those who are responsible, not yet being held accountable. Your newsroom, channel 405 on Twitter at newsroom405. WhatsApp your questions and your comments on 072-110-555. Welcome back. You're live with us here on the news feed late night. It's a year on, and we're in conversation with the brother-in-law of Collins Khosa. Collins Khosa, of course, had an incident with the law enforcement agencies in his house. They call it an attack, and they maintain that it was an attack, and an unnecessary attack at that led to the loss of life of Collins Khosa. In fact, Thabiso is saying, had they just been arrested, they know that this eventuality would have ended up with Collins still being with us today. At least they would have been able to argue their case in court, because they know that they were on the right side of the law. But we've also heard how the Joburg Metro saying to Thabiso, just go back into your yard, don't argue with these people because they use force. That is what you need to keep in your mind as we are continuing to deal with this issue of the institutions of law enforcement and the brutality that is meted out against the very same people that they need to protect. Thabiso, if something has to change in these institutions, for you, what would that be?
First, they will have to provide more training for them. We need them to have better integration with the community. We need to have the community trusting them. As it is now, our communities does not trust any law enforcement. So that we need to go back to the drawing board. We need more training. We need to train them how to be as human as possible. Use force when it's necessary. But other than that, no use of force should be done.
Yeah. There's some WhatsApp messages that have come through as well, some of messages of support, but some questions as well. Bemuzi is saying, our sympathy and condolences to the Khosa and Muvango family. I just need a chance to say this, and that, my brother, we will learn a lot from your courage and staying strong throughout the years. How are you staying strong? And how easy is it to stay strong? How easy is it to, or how difficult is it to persevere and want to push on? Right? You've got a team, a legal team that is ready to support you, but I'm sure it's not an easy battle every day.
It's not an easy battle every day. If you check at the time it has taken us, like it's been a year now, nothing concrete has happened. But we have people who are supporting us emotionally. Those are the people that make me want to wake up every morning and say, I'm going to fight on until justice is done. Yeah. The fact is, I've made a promise to Collins the day we buried him that I will fight until this thing is over. I will make sure that your justice is served. They must be held accountable for what they did.
What gives you that courage to take on the establishment, so to speak, right?
Yes,
this is a huge machinery.
Yes.
What gives you the courage to say, I can take them on and I'm going to win?
The truth will set me free. I have the truth on my side and a very strong legal team. Eventually the truth will come out, and the truth is they killed him. They are the ones who are responsible for his death. Nobody else.
What do you say to the kids? What are you telling them right now?
It's very, very difficult. I'll tell you a story. I was in Woodmead with my daughter. I was not aware there was an SNDF member behind us. So all of a sudden I could see the mood has changed. So I'm surprised, what is it that I've said to this kid now? So as I looked back, I saw she was traumatized because she could see a lady wearing an SNDF uniform. I tried to tell her every day that not all soldiers are the same. That was an incident that happened with us. Not all soldiers are the same. So you should not be scared of all the soldiers.
That speaks to her whole entire perspective having changed towards the military, but maybe even towards law enforcement in general.
That's what I've noticed. Whenever we see, we recently saw a convoy of soldiers, I could see she's traumatized. She knows these are the people who took the life of her uncle. It's a trauma that I'm thinking it will last her lifetime.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some more of the messages that have come in. Vinesh, they are getting in touch as well on WhatsApp. How much longer is government going to defend aggressive law enforcement officers, be it SAPS or the Defense Force or even Metro Police? Cases upon cases still being investigated. That's ridiculous. Cell phone footage, camera footage should be the #1 priority in these cases. Police Minister, come to the party and stop protecting the guilty. Vinesh, thank you very much for that. Let's talk to more of the WhatsApp messages. Then Tabi has a question. Can Tabo ask the gentleman what led to the officers to call for backup? You mentioned that the military then went on to call for backup. Just recount for us what led to that. I mean, you're saying they'd come in, you guys had left the camp chair there open, and then what happened?
Let me maybe start the story from just a little bit back. We did not know they were in the streets. It was only when a lady, a neighbor, came in running into the yard. She said to us, there are soldiers in the streets. That is when we went out. So that area is not a main street, it's a driveway. So I don't know where she was coming from, but we met her coming back from the end of the driveway. That is when she looked inside the yard, then she saw that camp chair. Then she said to me, by that time, have you been drinking? I said yes. She said to me, but you know, the president said you must not drink. I said, no. The president never said we must not drink. The president said you can do your own things in your own yard. Consumption can be done in your yard, not anywhere else, of which this is the case. And I'm not even holding any alcohol. The alcohol that you see there has been sitting there. That is when she was joined in by the other one. She is the one who caused all this. Then she said to me, I want the alcohol that you're drinking. We proceeded into the yard. She took a beer, but she's like, no. You think you're smart. Why is this alcohol that you're giving me now is not the same as the one in the camp chair? That is when my brother-in-law told her, I know, sister, I was the one drinking. That's when she said, if you knew, I want your alcohol. And can you imagine? She only confiscated 2 beers. Then she said to us, she instructed us now, let's go to the streets. Then we were questioning, how then are we being taken to the streets with these beers that were found in the fridge? That's when Collins' partner and my wife, they tried to reason with them. So we proceeded to the street. So they made sure our neighbors, they tried to block the way so that our neighbors cannot see what is happening. So we're trying to argue with them, guys, why are you taking these beers to the street and making us stand here? What is the whole point of this thing? That's when she said, we're going to call a backup for you. You think you're smart. So that is what caused them to call for backup. We were not fighting anyone.
So they took the alcohol that was in the yard,
yes,
and took you and the alcohol out of the yard to the streets.
Yes.
And what was the intention?
Exactly my question. Till this day, I don't even know what was the intention. Maybe she wanted to call backup so that they can deal with us outside where there is enough space. That's my thinking. Because there was no reason for her to even call for backup.
And of course, now with the alcohol being outside of the yard, you would be in violation of regulation.
Of
right?
course, of course.
And it would appear that you are drinking outside of your own yard when actually that alcohol was taken from your inside of your yard and you were pulled out.
Yes. But had they used common sense, they could have seen that those beers were very cold and they were unopened. If they used common sense, they could have seen that.
All right, let's take more of reaction tonight on social media. Part of this conversation from EZ_2_6. Who is going to police the brutal law enforcement agents? That's easy there on Twitter. And the one before this from WhatsApp was saying that how long are the police going to be protecting each other? For example, when you look at the reaction of the minister around her own troop there, do you think she is deliberately going out of the way to try and defend the indefensible?
Yes, I can say that. Or unless she is misinformed. But from the look of it, from the beginning, you could see that she's protecting her officers. You can't be protecting 5 people to the peril of the whole country. The decision that will be made with this case is going to have long effects. This case is presenting our government with the best opportunity to right the wrongs. If they can handle this properly, this will deter others from doing the very same thing that was done.
Patrick has got an interesting view. Patrick says the minister must resign. She doesn't have control of her department. How can she allow suspension with pay at the expense of death? Now, you're saying this case is going to have far-reaching implications, not just for the officers, but I suppose for the minister herself. Do you think, I mean, coming out of this, the outcome could even be the fact that she is actually herself incompetent in her job and should step down from it?
I can see you're very correct there. If you have seen how Begicele deals with his problems, he will go to the families of those who were assaulted. She has never done that. She has never apologized. So that, to us, it was an insult, even till this day. She was supposed to at least take 1 day of her time, come to us, apology or something, just say something to us as the leader. But she never did that. So I think in the long run, it will also affect her if she does not do things correctly.
Yeah. The president did speak, though, about this matter and said those who are responsible must be brought to book. I mean, did that lend any weight to the situation as far as you're concerned, or was the president just merely speaking as the president, I suppose, at the time?
I think he is very quite aware that we are not going to just take his words like that. We want to see action. So only action will show us if he was really serious about this. He's got this case to prove that whatever he was saying was the truth.
Now, of course, you mentioned that you made this promise at the funeral of Collins Khosa as you was laying him to rest, that you're going to take this to its ultimate end, and those who are responsible will be held accountable. How else are you maintaining the legacy of Collins Khosa? How else would you want him to be remembered? What else are you doing as a family? I know you've just unveiled his tombstone recently, but how else are you keeping that legacy alive?
We are trying by all accounts, as a family, everyone, to look after his kids and everyone else who he was taken care of. So that is how I think we can honor him, by just doing the best we can to look after those he was looking after.
Yeah. Zanele also sending us a WhatsApp tonight with some question. Why did the president deploy soldiers in the first place? Military is trained to fight in war. Ramaphosa is to blame. That's Zanele there on WhatsApp as well tonight. And I suppose this is what you're talking about when you say there are a lot of lessons that we need to learn here. And one such lesson is when to deploy the military and when not to deploy the military. And if you do deploy the military, what is their code of conduct? Because, as Zanele puts it, these are people who are trained for war, right? And even when they were coming out, it was very clear. One of their commanders was saying they scope and donor. And that was what it was expected to happen when they get out there. And what were we expecting as a nation?
As a nation, we're expecting to be donored.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. That's what they do. That's what we have seen. We have people that we know that were assaulted unnecessarily.
Yeah.
You cannot be protecting us and then you're killing us. Then you're not saving your purpose. Your purpose is to preserve life, not to take it.
Thabiso, appreciate your time, and thank you very much for being with us here tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night. That is Collins Khosa's brother-in-law, Thabiso Movango. Thank you very much for coming through.
It's a pleasure.
All right, then. The Newsfeed Late Night continues for you in a moment. Stay with us.